Hey, what's up, everybody? Back for an album review to kick off my workload today. And this is going to be focusing on an album that I wasn't even aware that was coming out. So maybe that's just because I missed it on the radar, or it just was kind of wasn't much marketing done to promote it. And that's the album Demonization from the death metal, deathgrind, extreme metal supergroup Lockup. Which, if you're not familiar, it was it's kind of a side project that was started by Shane Embury, who was best known as the bass player for the legendary Napalm Death. So just, circa 2000, 2001, he put the group together with another well-known pioneer of, in a sense, of the extreme metal, Peter Taxgren from Hypocrisy, he's got one of my all-time favorite metal musicians, definitely up there. I really like him and his work. Also, with the group on guitars is Jesse Pintado, who's also of Napalm Death and Terrorizer. Unfortunately, he passed away a few years ago, so he was only on some of the earlier albums that these guys put out. And to round it out, you have Nick Barker, who is a journeyman drummer in the extreme metal scene that's been around forever. He does the kind of thing that like Hellhammer and Frost do. When it comes to, he's just played in a ton of bands. I mean, I think Cradle of Filth was where he initially started out with, but he's played for Dimmu Borgir or Old Man's Child, Testament, and a whole bunch of other bands. So yeah, he's been around for a long time. And so that was kind of a super group. That they put together, and the first album that they put out was Pleasures Paved Sewers, which was all right. A lot of times supergroups kind of tend to underwhelm. The album was okay. I wasn't blown away by it, but it was what it was. It was kind of definitely the influence of the era of Napalm Death in the kind of the mid to late 90s, when they went away from just being completely grindcore to having more death metal elements in it. Basically, when Mick Harris, their original drummer, he was no longer in the band, so kind of at that point when they got a new drummer. And then after that, I guess, because Peter's a pretty busy dude. He's a producer and he's got several side projects. So he usually is kind of like a one and done with a lot of these supergroup projects or side projects, kind of like with Bloodbath, which is another death metal supergroup. He did one album and that was it. So they brought in Thomas Lindberg, which is the singer you probably are most familiar with the band At the Gates, one of the legends in the melodic death metal scene, also with The Crown. I like his vocals on when he's with At the Gates. I wasn't overly, enthusiastic about him taking over vocals for this style of music. So the second album, Hate Breeds Suffering, I think I listened to a little bit, but I wasn't super enthused about it. I might have to go back and revisit it now, since it's been over 10 years or so. But now, after a few other albums, and I think a live album, live in Japan, if I remember correctly, they're out with a new album, and they've got a new singer, who is another member of a legendary grindcore, death grind band from the 90s. It's gone into the 2000s and beyond, and that's Kevin Sharp from Brutal Truth. So anybody that is a fan of grindcore probably is, and that is old enough, definitely remembers, at least in the 90s, Brutal Truth. I was never a huge Brutal Truth fan, but I did like some of their stuff. I think I had maybe one or two of their albums, and it's surprisingly his addition is almost like is amazingly fitting the style he uses on this album. I was aware of how he did his vocals, you know, with Brutal Truth. So it'd be more the growl, and then kind of the frantic, maniacal kind of scream yell type. You know, like some guy that's losing his mind completely, totally manic. But yeah, his vocals are like that. They're you can understand what he's saying, so they're not clean, but there's an element to it. I don't know how you really would call it, you know, more of the death metal type element to it, where the voices can be gruff at times, and at times he breaks into that kind of fanatical madman type kind of, you know, not screaming like screeching, but just like, you know, just going like a guy that's possessed. And it fits the music really well. I was actually really surprised how well it meshed with the style they're going for. So that actually, before I get into the rest of it, yeah, that was like a really, you know, nice surprise, because I wasn't sure how they're gonna handle that. And like I said, the first album came out like, you know, in 2001, so that's a long ass time ago before I, you know, really had spent much time listening to anything they'd done. And this album is freaking amazing. Yeah, it's a must-have if you're a fan of extreme metal. Basically, you know, it's 14 tracks. It's just a little bit over like 41 minutes. I think the longest track is like clocks in at just under 5.5 minutes, and the shortest track is just under 2 minutes. So it's just no nonsense. I don't think you're not going to hear any guitar solos on it. It's just, you know, blast beats, crazy riffs, and, you know, the occasional moment where they slow down a little bit. But yeah, it's just like I said, if you just want to listen to something that's brutal as hell. And Nick Barker, I will definitely say, I don't think I'd listened to him. I mean, compared to his drumming on the first Lockup album to now, you can really tell that his chops have just gotten way, way better. Not that they were ever bad, but I mean, his blast beats compared to the first album to now are just sick. I mean, he's really you know, tightened up his playing, and he can hang with, you know, with anybody. And so that's a real, that just to have that technical precision, and just to, you know, because blast beats, you know, are pretty taxing on the body. So he's able to do, you know, to keep that up, no problem. And yeah, there's a guitarist on the album, Anton Reisenegger, kind of like Schwarzenegger, but Reisenegger. And I'm not familiar with him at all, but if he was, you know, doing the if he was responsible for any writing, you know, the creative, you know, coming up with the riffs and stuff, he did an amazing job. If that's the case, it's just, like I said, it's just pure death grind. So you've got some moments like that are just, you know, just great riffing, and then you go into just, you know, crazy blasting. But it never, you know, it's varied enough that it never gets monotonous, but it is intense. I'll put it that way. So you probably, if you're not used to listening to this kind of music all the time, it's an exhausting listen, but it's only 41 minutes. And like I said, there's variety. And as I was listening to it, I really noticed, I don't know. I don't necessarily, you know, would refer to these as influences or whatever, because that, you know, may suggest of, you know, copying or taking some stuff from somebody else's style, and, you know, but it's just from my association, because I've listened to so much extreme metal in so many different bands, that I'll hear something that just jumps out at me that reminds me of another band. And like I said, you've still got some of that 90s, mid to late 90s Napalm Death feel to it, but it goes way beyond that. I mean, I even got a vibe from like the you know, Zyklon albums, you know, World of Worms, Eon, and so on and so forth. With some of the riffing, I mean, it just jumped out at me. Also, Exhumed. It's earlier 2000s, and some a little mid 2000s, you know, like Anatomy is Destiny. It had a strong vibe with some of the riffs with that too. But then they've got their own thing going on as well, as far as that goes. But there's no frills, no gimmicks. but there's enough variety to keep it interesting. And there's some sick songs. There's some really badass moments in some of these songs. There's a song called Demons Raging, and it's only like, it's under 3 minutes, but I've played it. I don't know. I'm, you know, if it was a cassette or, you know, or a record, I would have probably worn it out by now. If that was the song I was playing, because it's just badass. So yeah, there's not really anything, you know, weak about it as far as songs go. It's just some you're gonna like more than others, because some have better hooks and better riffs. But it's all, you know, good, and you can just put it on from the beginning and play it through without any worries. And I will actually say that after comparing this to the Immolation album, Atonement, that I reviewed earlier, I would actually give this one the edge as far as if I was to compare them head to head and give one a rating better than the other. I say this is actually better. Mainly because Immolation is Immolation, so and this is something completely new and fresh for me as far as hearing these guys. So that it has that advantage. And like I said, Kevin Sharp's vocals are great on it. They fit that just frantic, you know, just psychotic pace. It just blasts going on, and he can keep up with the pace of it with his vocals. Because sometimes you'll get guys that their vocals, or they have to kind of fudge the words or kind of shorten things down in order to keep up with the pace of the song. And it kind of, you know, it shows that you know, the limitations of their vocal capabilities. But no, he keeps right up with it, and is completely, you can hear and understand what he's saying, you know, until, you know, a few parts that might sound a little bit, you know, muddled, but you can check out the lyric sheet to go along with it. So yeah, he's definitely there, you know, just keeping up and just, you know, doing an amazing job. And the way, like I said, the way he does the vocals, it fits with the music, you know, to a T. So yeah, I mean, I don't know if I'm assuming these guys are all doing other stuff. So, you know, that's the downside. You get a group like this that puts out a kick-ass album, you know, kind of like a band like Bloodbath, which unfortunately the latest Bloodbath was not that great, but they'll put out an amazing album, and then you got all the guys, they'll split up and go back and do their main projects, and, you know, it'll be, you know, because I think, you know, it looks like there was a 6-year gap, excuse me, between this Lockup album and the last one. So it's kind of a shame, because I'll get, you know, spoiled by listening to this, and then who knows how long I'll have to wait until the next one comes out. But that's just how it is. So anyway, yeah, if you're a fan of deathgrind and just want something just brutal as fuck and just, you know, heavy, and you just want to just put something on and just go nuts, yeah, this is going to be right up your alley. I definitely recommend it. So yeah, check it out and support the band and buy a copy. Looks like the label, like, they were on Nuclear Blast, surprise, surprise, but the label for this one, it says the label's listenable, like that word listenable. I don't know, I've never heard of it. If it's one of the guys in the band's own label or not, but yeah, check it out. You will like it if you're a fan of just straightforward, no nonsense extreme metal. Yeah, so that's it for now, guys. I'll see you soon with a new album review.